Last year, I was speaking at a law conference, and as part of that, I was invited to participate in a panel. And one of the questions was, what's the number one skill you need in business? And before I could even think about what I was saying, my answer was self-worth. And my friend Lucy Dickens, who was actually at the event, did a lovely Instagram reel last week where she shared that response for her really stood out for us. I'm going to read this caption from Lucy Dickens. She wrote, "The incredibly insightful Leanne Hughes was asked this question recently, and her answer has been running around in my mind ever since. Her answer is self-worth. Before you can lead others, grow your business, or take bold risks, you first have to believe in your own value. When you know your worth, it's easier to set boundaries, ask for what you deserve, and step into new opportunities with confidence. Self-worth is the foundation for resilience, authenticity, and the courage to show up as your true self." So here's the question. How are you practicing self-worth today? Thanks so much, Lucy. I thought that was a perfect intro to today's Weekend Rewind. It's a conversation I recorded with Alan Weiss, the rock star of consulting, the $1 million consultant, written over 60 books. We have a fortnightly talk show. Enjoy the listen, and I'll speak to you tomorrow.
Morning, Alan.
Good evening, Leanne.
Welcome back to another episode of Talk the Walk. I think this is number 7. You think we're getting better at this?
Well, I think so. I mean, I realize I keep getting invited back to companies until I get it right. So
that's your secret to becoming a $1 million consultant. Just screw it up.
Secret to repeat business. You never give them perfect.
Never give them a result. Just give them like 80% of the results so they keep asking for more. Have you had a good week, Alan?
I've had a good week, thank you. Things have been very, very nice. We had torrential rains, but now, ironically, as we were talking before the show, it's 88 degrees Fahrenheit here at the end of August, and it's 88 degrees where you are in Brisbane, except you're in winter.
Yeah, we're the final days of winter, and it is heating up big time. And as a result, Alan, just to share, when it heats up, I mean, that signals to animals that it's spring and it's breeding season, and so they get on the move as well. So I've had a shocker of a week, to be honest. We've lived in this house for 8 years. 2 days ago, we found a snake on our washing machine.
On top of it?
It was behind it. So there's like 2 taps, like there's 2 hoses, and then there was a third hose. And it was a snake. So we had it removed, and that was dealt with very efficiently. And actually, honestly, I was thinking of you because he only charged me $130. I would have paid at least $1,000 to just get that thing out of the house.
Was this a deadly snake or just a common snake?
It was a beautiful green tree snake. It's non-venomous, but it was very long. And so, you know, where my husband and I, like the dog walk yesterday, like, can you believe we had a snake in a house? Couldn't believe it. Yesterday, another snake, Alan, another snake near the hot water system. So we had the same guy back, and I'm terrified of walking downstairs today. But we've looked at all the exits. We've sealed everything up. We just hope it doesn't.
This is a true story. We had a 7.5-foot red constrictor who lived in our indoor pool. My son had the snake about 5 feet long, decided he'd take it to college. College said to him, Florida said, "You're not taking the snake to the dorms." So he left the snake with us. My wife liked it. We put it in the indoor pool. People said, well, you know, it's going to drown. Chlorine will kill it. Well, nobody told the snake. The snake used to swim back and forth. Then he'd come up on the dock. But the thing is, we had to feed it dead rats. And my wife would go out in one of our exotic cars and buy frozen rats. And then she'd have to defrost the rat. And a snake will not eat something that's dead. So she had to dangle it as though it was living. And finally, the snake got to 7.5 feet, and we were moving up to rabbits. And I said to my wife, enough, you know, because if this wound itself around her, because he escaped twice, he could hold her on the bottom of the pool, you know, because this snake was all long, it could live down there. So we brought it to a reptile recovery area.
Oh, how come I've never heard that story? Did you have a name for your pet snake?
Yes, Beauregard.
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 Of course.
Yeah.
Hey, wow, fascinating. But hey, if you're here live, have you had a reptile in your house, or where are you joining us from? Let us know in the comments.
A reptile that you weren't married to. Okay.
That's probably a topic of another episode.
Yeah, I guess
but
so. Today's
topic is all about, I mean, and you could probably attract a reptile maybe because of low self-esteem. Perhaps it can play out in many different ways. Is low self-esteem stealing your potential? Alan, what's going on here? Can you actually define self-esteem for us? You're very good at definitions. So we might
Well, self-esteem is a matter of self-worth. And in other words, if you take a look at worth and you take a look at efficacy, efficacy is how good you are at something. So I have high efficacy in speaking and writing. I have low efficacy in music. The only thing I can play is a radio, and that's not very good. But that's okay, because playing an instrument is not part of my career.
Yeah.
But what self-worth is about is that, let's say that even though you have high efficacy, you fail at something, you're not good, you're not successful. It doesn't damage your self-worth. You're still a worthy person. And what often happens is that when people have low self-esteem, if they don't perform well at something, it crushes them. And if they do perform well at something and they have low self-esteem, they feel like an imposter.
Really? So they don't actually take that on? So I see, yeah, interesting. Because if I perform well at something that I want to be good at, that then breeds confidence in me, as opposed to seeing myself as an imposter.
As your career progressed, did you ever feel that somebody was going to find you out, that maybe they thought higher of you than you thought of yourself?
Oh, definitely. I mean, it still exists. It definitely still exists, and particularly when you work in different environments or doing different things that you haven't really built up the evidence or stacked the evidence for. You're like, oh, can I do it? And often it's when someone else puts a bet on you, and they're like, I think you could do this, or I'm inviting you in, and you think, okay, if they've got that trust in me, maybe I can do it. What about you? I mean, it seems like you're pretty. I would say, like, you've got the self-esteem of, I don't know, like Muhammad Ali. Has that always been the case for you?
Well, I was a scared little kid. I mean, I grew up in the inner
Yeah.
city. And in those days, if somebody wanted to punch you around in high school or not let you get to your locker or something, you didn't complain to the principal. There were no grievance committees. You just had to figure out a way around this.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until I got into high school and started to perform well with other people in a socialized atmosphere, and then into college, that my self-esteem really grew. And when your self-esteem is strong, you're very resilient, you bounce back, you're not crushed if you lose, like I said before, because we all lose sometimes. However, if your self-esteem is low, it masks your talent. And your true talent can never shine if your self-esteem is low. So when you feel like an imposter, you're always a little bit wary that somebody's going to find you out. And the opposite of that is you have very high esteem that you show, but you have no efficacy. You're not very good. And we call that an empty suit. Somebody who puts on a good game but can't deliver. In Texas, they call it big hat, no cattle.
Yeah. I've heard that. It's a really funny phrase. I want to go back to just the first part of what you shared, but first, Anne is joining us, and Anne says, "Luckily, no reptiles." Thanks, Anne. I don't know where you're joining us from, but good to hear that. It's nice to hear that your home is safe. You said in a socialized environment, that's where your self-esteem grew, and that's interesting. So you're around people, and interestingly now, I mean, we've got universities and a lot of online programs where people are learning in isolation. Is that a problem when it comes to building self-esteem and those that are younger?
Well, it's a big problem, because I think that self-esteem has not been all that high as of late, but the pandemic absolutely has caused a great deal of erosion. And so you're thrust to your own devices, more or less. You're told what you can't do. You're told what little you can do. You're not enabled to see even family members in some cases. So the pandemic really let the air out of self-esteem. And now you add to that the fact that there's so much volatility today and so much disruption, and there's 2 wars going on, and people are worried about climate change, and I can go on and on and on. So people feel they have less and less control. And one of the things I try to help them with when I coach is the fact that they have to give themselves more permission. I'm running a self-esteem program by Zoom on October the 8th, just coincidentally, by the way. And what I want to show people is they have to give themselves more permission, take more power. They can't wait to be vested with it by someone else, because if you have to wait for someone else, that's low self-esteem.
Love that. You have to wait for someone else. That's low self-esteem. That's probably the quote of the episode. And so why is this important? Like, how does it manifest? I know there's obvious ways. And I think, particularly in the work that you do, helping people with consulting and pricing, I mean, you can tell with pricing sometimes, that's an obvious link between someone's opinion of themselves and what they're charging. What about other ways in their careers? Have you seen it play out, low self-esteem?
Well, people refuse to say what's really on their mind. And some people feel that, I'm just wondering how to phrase this. Some people feel that women are worse at this than men. and that women tend to hold back more because they try to be more sociable and more friendly and so forth. But when you have low self-esteem, you worry too much about being liked, and you don't worry enough about being respected. You don't put forth controversial or provocative ideas because you don't want to be sort of attacked or critiqued for them. So low self-esteem is also reflected when people procrastinate. They'd rather take the heat for not doing something than do something and people don't like it. So, if that were the way of the world with the arts, for example, you'd never have a new play, you'd never have a new painting, you'd never have a new symphony.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes it is like being provocative creates that disruption. And I think that's why often, and LinkedIn is one of these platforms, but you see a lot of sort of vanilla posts on there. Like no one's really having an opinion or a crack.
Platitudes.
It's yeah, exactly. And so it doesn't really stand out. And I think the goal there is they want to build their brand, but by playing it small, they're not having the effect that they like.
I'll tell you what happens there. You ever see these things? They'll post somebody saying Carl Jung or Lindbergh or somebody, and they'll post a saying as though because they posted this profound person saying it's true, and second because they posted it, they're equal. They're like them.
Yeah.
It's just. Let me ask you something. You played netball, right?
Yes.
Okay, netball takes a lot of skill.
Yeah. Thank you.
And were you a good netball player?
Yes, I was good. Yeah. And I had some natural talent, but also had to work at it.
So you had a good shot.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
And I practiced.
Yeah. And so when you went on the netball court, did you feel like you were going to be successful and you were going to win?
Yeah, when I played well. See, this is really interesting. It wasn't even about the amount of practice or anything. It was on that court. It was your belief in yourself and actually not even thinking at all. That was the goal. And when you started thinking about the shot, you'd freeze up and you wouldn't get the shot.
So the interesting thing about self-esteem, or one of the interesting things, is that it's a psychological feeling that actually affects your physical abilities. You can watch professional golfers, or Australia's got great professional tennis players. You have great swimmers. But if your head isn't in the right place and you start to worry, and God, people think I'm going to win this, but I might not win, you don't perform as well.
Yeah. So a lot of this is actually, and I just want to acknowledge Dee Dee is here. Thanks for joining us, Dee Dee. And she totally agrees, I would say, with everything that we've shared so far. I'm not too sure where you said that. Thanks, Dee Dee, for being here. I guess the key is it's always also just getting out of your own head. And I think we spend too much time overthinking and going to worst case scenarios, actually do things. And so what is your advice, actually, if you're talking to leaders who are working for organizations, and they're working with team members that might have low self-esteem, what can they do to help build someone else's esteem?
Well, first of all, make sure you don't inadvertently undermine it. Don't say to them, boy, that was a stupid idea. Don't say to them that, if that's such a good idea, why haven't we already done it? Things like that. You have to say to them, if you're skeptical about that, you have to say to them, boy, I hadn't thought of that. What's your social proof? Give me some evidence of why you think that will work. And on a grand scale, I'll tell you this. We had problems with self-esteem and people being innovative in one of my clients, Calgon. And the president and I created an award for the yearly banquet, which was the best idea that didn't work. And so we rewarded people for coming up with good ideas, even if it turned out they couldn't be implemented. And so that helps build people's esteem because they realize what they're being recognized for. They don't have to win all the time. They don't have to be number one all the time. They just have to put forth a good effort. And of course, we're often surrounded by people who undermine us deliberately or accidentally. Families often undermine us. Siblings undermine us. People at work undermine us.
And it's often, I guess, the perception of them undermining you as well. I remember someone, I think, in a meeting environment and talking to a colleague after, and she felt undermined in that. And as an external person, I was like, no, that wasn't, it was her perception of being undermined. And so I think when you've got high self-esteem, you're kind of looking for evidence that continues to build that level of confidence. And when you don't, you're looking for evidence of people agreeing with you that you are an imposter, that you don't belong there. So it's really about changing that lens.
Yes, because this is a competitive world. Capitalism is a competitive system. And you can't dance through it with low self-esteem because you're not going to win. You're not going to win the race because you don't think you can win the race. That's what happens. So we have to go back and look at what we've accomplished. And we have to realize that if we have the right values and we have the right ethics and we perform well. We don't hurt other people.
Yeah.
We're people of worth. And just because we don't get a certain sale or we don't win a certain game doesn't really undermine our basic worth.
Yeah, love that. And so does everyone joining us here. So thank you, Jennifer. Jennifer's shares. I love this conversation already. I could not agree more. And Anne has shared, she's just signed up for Alan's webinar and has shared a link to that in chat. So yeah, that's lovely. Thank you so much for being here and for contributing.
And who did you just have on here before? I think it was
Jennifer.
Jennifer, she did an interview with me a couple of weeks ago that was sensational. A really good interviewer.
Awesome. I'll have to check that out. And we might, Jennifer, if you want to link to your podcast with Alan, would love to share that. What is the difference between having high self-esteem and arrogance? Is there like, what's the line?
Well, I'm laughing because I'm asked this a lot. So here's the definition.
Are you? That's so funny.
All the time. Confidence, high self-worth is the honest to God belief you can help people. Mm-hmm. Arrogance is the belief you can help people, but also the belief that you can't learn anything further yourself. And smugness is arrogance without the talent. So I think that people should skate right up to the line. In other words, sometimes I lean over that line a little bit, arrogance, I pull myself back. But I think you need to do that because you can flirt with arrogance, but you should be high on confidence. Because if out of this sense of false modesty, of this need for humility, which is ridiculous, you keep pulling back, you'll never really be able to help people because you're afraid to reveal yourself.
And people like to follow those that are confident, like that are taking a bold action. Like I wouldn't put a bet on someone that's like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. Like you want the person's like, I know I can do this. And here are the 3 things I'm going to, do next.
One of my books about 2 years ago was Fearless Leadership. And, there are basically 5 kinds of leadership, one of which is charismatic. I call it referential leadership. And I follow you because I trust you. I believe in you. And you can establish that when you're bold. You can establish that when you're not afraid of not being liked. And when you show people that you have the confidence to succeed, the high self-worth. It's something that it's not a badge you wear, but people can perceive when you have high esteem.
Yeah, that's right. So we talked about leaders helping others build their self-esteem. If we just want to build it on ourselves, what can we do to build that up?
Well, this is going to sound crazy, but the first thing you have to do is love yourself. You can't love other people unless you love yourself, right? People aren't going to love you unless you love yourself. So you have to think highly of yourself. And if you have trouble doing that, and it's non-therapeutic, that is, there's nothing in the past that your parents told you and somebody you need a clinician for. If it's not something like that, you have to keep a journal. You have to remind yourself of the good things you do, of the help you've provided, of the volunteerism you've done. Almost everybody's a coach at one time or another. You help other people. This is why I hate coaching and certificates and things. And so who did you coach? How did you help them? What did you do for somebody in distress? What did you sacrifice for someone? Family, non-family, doesn't matter. And you can see that you're a person of worth. It's not about how much money you have. It's not about winning the races. It's being a person of worth, having the right ideals. And once you can recognize that for yourself, you can keep doing it. Will a martini clear my throat?
I think it will. While you clear your throat, Jennifer is just sharing, Alan, thank you for your kind words. I really enjoyed our conversations. That's lovely. Thank you. And the links haven't showed up, but we'll get them and added to the show notes. And Dee Dee shares that Fearless Leadership is a favorite book of hers. Fantastic. I don't think it's controversial. I think what you said you need to love yourself. And I think what you shared in those examples are that there's different ways to add value. And a lot of people think it's about your expertise but really it's around like, have you made someone laugh today? Like, have you, just things like that. Have you fed your dog today? Like it's just small wins that can really build up over time.
And I think that it has to be sincere and legitimate. I don't know if you had it there. We had this thing where people dumped a bucket of ice over their head for some charity.
The ice bucket challenge. Yeah.
But I wonder how many of those people actually gave money and time to the charity. Dumping ice over your head isn't as important as money and time, one or the other or both. The same thing, people say, pay it forward. And they talk about doing something for someone. Those are platitudes too. And if you have to be recognized all the time, it doesn't work. And so what are you doing every day that really shows that you're a confident, high esteemed person by helping others, even when you're not asked, by providing something that takes part of your time? And, you know, I keep mentioning time because I can always make another dollar, but I can't make another minute.
Yeah, yeah, that investment in time is really important. Now, a lot of the things that you talk about relate to being bold. What bold action could someone take today if they want to start reclaiming their confidence and potential?
I would think that they should start speaking up when normally they don't, and start someplace of low threat. In other words, a school board meeting, a municipal meeting, your kids' soccer committee. Start someplace of low impact and speak up where you normally wouldn't. A policy that you don't think is right, a new initiative they should try, and then gradually accelerate that. So you're doing it at business meetings. You're doing it when you're out socially with people. Um, you know, a lot of you'll be at a restaurant, and you're with two other couples, and the two other couples will say, "Isn't this fabulous food? Isn't the service great?" And you'll say, you want to say, "I don't think the food is that good. It's cold, and we had to wait for 40 minutes." But you want everybody to be happy. You have to
Yeah.
practice saying, "Well, but what's the evidence here? We waited 40 minutes, and I can see that none of our food is hot." You know, so practice just being honest enough to contribute.
Yeah, it's a really good start. Like just start speaking up a bit more and sharing what's on your mind. I think is something very practical. And for some of those listening, it's like, oh, that's quite a bit bolder than what I'm used to. So that would be like a big thing for them to do. And I think for me, I can be bold in certain forums and other ones I kind of hold back. So that's a good reminder for me to
Well, when you
speak
say
up.
that, I mean, what I'm about to say does not apply to you because I know you will, but it applies to a lot of women. And that is, women are their own worst enemies here because they're more concerned about what people are going to think.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and they shouldn't be, because there's this, you know, there's this false expectation. Oh, they're going to call me a bitch.
Yeah.
They're going to do that, but that's not what happens really. I mean, and it's not a gender issue; it's a personality issue. So
Yeah.
you've got to be willing to be forceful, because most of the time when you are, you're helping other people. You're not helping
Yeah.
them by not being forceful.
You're not helping them by not being forceful. Yeah.
Well,
Fascinating.
you've seen people speak, and then people lie to them, and they say, "Oh, you were great.
I know.
You were
I know.
great." So they're never going to improve.
I know. I know. Oh, so much. This has been great. I mean, it's amazing what we can cover in 20 minutes. This is powerful. This is powerful stuff, Alan. Now I think we got Anne that's joining you at the next webinar you're hosting on self-esteem. What other events do you have coming up, Alan?
Well, in 2 weeks, I'm in Florida, and I'm doing my 10th Thought Leadership Conference. Very impressive group of people. And then I've got my Zoom workshop series, which is one a month, is on brevity in September. I just did one on the real story, how you tell a story. And September is on brevity. And my initial instructions to people were just shut up. I figured I can't have a real message.
That's it. That's what you
Yeah.
learn. Yeah.
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 And so those are on tap. And then in Vegas, where I'll see you in October, we're doing how to be spontaneous. I'm actually going to help people plan to be spontaneous. It'll be fabulous.
There is some planning that is involved in being spontaneous. Like even for our live stream, I mean, we've got to pick a topic, and then there's a few sort of prompts that we riff with, but we don't stick to the script. I mean, there is no script.
You're right.
It's
And I'm doing it on Halloween in the United States. And so that should be interesting.
Yeah, so Dee Dee, we're looking forward to seeing your Halloween outfit. I'll be there in Vegas the day before. I'm running an event.
Yeah, what are you
on
doing?
Return on Life. Yeah, and then I'm actually doing a big rooftop event next Tuesday. We've got 150 people on a
I
Brisbane
saw
rooftop.
that. That's a big deal.
It's a big deal, yeah. And it's with, I mean, Michael is he's a really famous author and coach as well. So we've got people flying in from New Zealand and all around Australia for that, which will be great. And then actually I'm hosting an event with my friend Sally Prosser called Get to the Point. So it's similar to brevity, but yeah, really helping people just speak up and in a sort of succinct way.
Very nice.
Yeah. Well, Alan, it's always a delight having these chats. So
Yeah,
thank you.
just fly by. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Cheers to you.
Cheers to you. And cheers
And
to
thanks
all
for
of you.
joining us on the live stream.